you've had yourself a day, but fall camp is underway for Clemson, and I just kind of wanted to get your observations, your overall takeaways, like kind of what was the vibe at the practices. Obviously the big weigh-in was yesterday, but really things are starting to get underway now, and I'm sure they're going to start working on install, and so we'll get working on the fundamentals and then building towards install. So kind of what did you see? What were some big takeaways for you?
Well, I think to start, it's fascinating I think now in college football, there's a lot of other organizations, other sites on different beats that starting to cover fall camp, you're sort of still trying to figure out the roster in a way
Oh yeah.
where there's so many moving pieces, there's so many different parts where let's just use FSU as an example, having to learn a new quarterback in Castellanos in that sense and trying to use those comments as a way to, I guess, supercharge it in a sense. But for this group, it's sort of interesting because all the same talking points are kind of how we relayed it last year, just with a more positive connotation. And so my thing was last year, I felt like day one, the energy there, you asked around and you really didn't feel like the group was at 100% in terms of, man, they were glad to be back, of course, but things didn't feel as intense like it should. And it ended up kind of setting the tone for the start of that season against Georgia. Well, today was completely different. And I know energy is kind of a cliche-ridden term that we may use, but I think for this Clemson group specifically, when we talk about the addition of Tom Allen, the key makes in the portal, guys like Will Helt, Jeremiah Alexander, I think energy is the right word to use. And so day one, people are doing, there's a drill at the beginning where they put the pads in the end zone, and it's more of just footwork drills to get the guys extra warmed up, juiced up before they head outside. And you got Cade Klubnik calling guys out and trying to race with Antonio Williams or race with Tristan Lee. And it's subtle trash talk, and not in a bad way, but they're just trying to get each other amped up. And everyone's fired up like, oh, I beat you, I did this. And they're running outside with smiles on their faces. And so it's just a different feel to 2025 than it was maybe last year. A lot less uncertainty as well, just within different positions. So I think that kind of translates into a really positive day for them. I wrote earlier that just went live on TigerNet, some of the freshman standouts today. I mean, talk about a guy like Gideon Davidson and Amari Adams. I think those are two players that they might be the youngsters of this team, and we talk about retention as being one of the themes for this group. I think those two are going to contribute early. They really impressed me today.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And you mentioned those two in particular. I mean, I can't remember too many college ready freshmen that look the way that they do. And I mean, you hit on it. Like this team in general has just a different kind of vibe about it than they did last year. You mentioned the uncertainty there was. Obviously, the biggest thing is quarterback. You have your guy finally. And you have your guy that's going to be. I just put it on the screen before you came on, but he had 146 votes for ACC Player of the Year, and the next guy had 9. I mean, I think that it says a lot about what this group is, and the preseason All ACC team had 11 Clemson players on it. So the retention, the build towards this group, you're starting to see it kind of materialize finally, on the practice field. Defensively, did you get to see much of Tom Allen? I'm always really intrigued just to kind of hear how he interacts with the players and how he commands his presence when he's out there.
Yeah, he's really the CEO of the defense, and it really is a stark contrast to Wes Goodwin from last year where he was kind of in one spot. And obviously he's commanding the entire defense, but there's a difference between commanding it and commanding it with it all caps, emphasis on it with Allen. And he actually ran by me today, and he could be running from drill to drill and the whistle's in his mouth or he's shouting out phrases. And it's not like, in a sense, and I think the players describe it well with the defense, is that they let them play loose and free. These aren't complicated calls. We want to be able to react quickly. And I think that's relayed in his instruction, whether it's about tackling or the emphasis on making this rep the best one. There's just a simplicity to it. But I think at the same time, the players gravitate towards it because there's an extra oomph behind it. He's puffing his chest. He's tackling players on the sideline. Like, there's just a ball of energy. It's like a golden retriever almost, used in the most positive ways, that the dog's always attached to your hip and they're always wagging the tail. And so I think that's the one of the ways that many might describe Allen. But I talked to D. Creighton about this afterwards, and he just relayed. I asked what was maybe the moment that Allen was different, and he took a second, but just had this bright smile on his face with like just this, the players just gravitate towards this guy. And I think that was reflected each day in practice. There's just, I hate to use the word aura because it's kind of been memed to death, but I think that's the right way to potentially describe this is the dude just has a gravitating pull towards him. It's aura, I guess it's a simplification of it, but that's just kind of the way to put it.
Yeah, man, and I think that it's a stark. I mean, not to throw shade to Wes Goodwin in the previous iteration of the defensive staff, but just from everything that has been relayed, it just the commanding presence, but the aura, as you mentioned, it wasn't the same. And I think the defense last year took very much on the personality of the guy running it, and it just either they were too passive at times, they didn't tackle well. Of course, the run game, defending the run game was a disaster. So it's nice to have that stark contrast this year. A guy that very much is players gravitate towards him. The leadership, the aura, he's respected. And I don't think it's not that the players didn't respect Wes Goodwin, but there's just a different level of reverence, I think, and I think you can't really quantify, and I think every good defensive coordinator needs to have it. And I hate to I hate to compare him to Brent Venables, but that's the same. They're very different. They're different people, but the vibe and the commanding presence are both still there. And that's what you need, I think, more so on defense than offense, just because it's very much it's not a complicated thing. Defense, it's about playing with intensity, and playing basically on go pretty much every single second of every single snap. And if you don't have the guy giving you the play call that is as fired up as you are expected to be, it's kind of hard to do that from snap to snap. So I think that's very, very telling.